Welcome, comrades. This is Brother Soldier again, coming with part 2 of the Two Nation series that we're discussing, and we're talking about how two nations began in the belly in the womb of Rebekah, who was the wife of Isaac, and they had Jacob and Esau, the twins, and how the two twins were two nations battling against each other. And like I said, a nation in this context in the African struggle represents a mindset and a value system that probably one is westernized and Europeanized, one is Africanized or seeks to claim their Africanness. And then likewise, back in this example in the Bible, the two brothers one was Edomite, one was of the tribe of Jacob. And so the Edomites actually went against their own brothers in many of the battles and even hooked up with the enemy to destroy his own brother. These things you see going on in the African continent current day. You see these things going on in the diaspora with many of our African brothers selling each other out for the power, because a lot of people cater towards power rather than the pride of their ancestral heritage, even though the pride of their ancestral heritage is a defeated group at the time militarily, doesn't mean that you throw out who you are, because God created us to be who we are. We should embrace that, and we should love the body that he puts us in. If it's a male body, we should love the fact that we're male and we can make the decision to become men. If it's a female body, we should love the fact that we're a female and love the fact and make the choice to become a woman. So in this sense, Africa represents those who have come from African descent, and those who are proud of it seem to be at a battle with those who do not want to claim it. And because the struggle is so serious and it's a life and death struggle, that people have been getting killed through police brutality, through former lynchings, through current day lynchings, through injustice systems, mental health needs. There are a lot of things that have broken us down as a black family, and we're really at war. And so when you see people of the same race turning on you and embracing it's almost like a we can't beat them, join them attitude. So they're over us. You might as well do what they say because they have the last word. And those people are broken to a certain degree. And what that system and those systems seek to do is you don't just make your decision and say, I'm going to serve African interests, I'm going to serve European. You're going to be imposed upon to serve one above the other. And you have to be a strong individual to hold to what you know is valuable. Because when it all comes down to it, you only have you and your people. Because nobody's going to take care of other people's race and nations above their own. So you have to take care of each other. Even the animal kingdom teaches that. We can look at that and see how they survive. Watch the lions go up against the water buffalo. And sometimes those water buffaloes will get together and deal with that predator. So anyway, taking this to the next dimension. Okay, so we're talking two nations in the West and Africa. Okay, and in these two nations, we have siblings, cousins, nieces and nephews, father, son, going against each other for the sake of trying to survive. One's trying to survive in a system that doesn't love them. Both of them are trying to survive. But one has embraced his Africanness, and he is willing to make the sacrifice to get even further rejected. But he feels like it's a better choice psychologically in the long run. He doesn't feel like it's a good choice to stay with a system that causes you to assimilate and lose your own mind and your own self, your own culture, your own language, your own religion, your own tongue. So he decides to stay and hang tight. So these two cannot come together because they're against one another, just like Jacob and Esau wrestled. Now, let's go to this next dimension real quick. We probably have to go to part 3 with this. So this next dimension is when Christ is dealing with the Pharisees. The Pharisees are really after him at this time. This is in the 8th chapter of St. John, verses 44. It starts, and they're talking about, who do you think you are? They're asking Jesus, who do you think he is, speaking heavier than Moses and Father Abraham and all of that? And why do you think you're better than all these people? They wanted to kill him. And these are men of the seed of David that also come through the lineage. They are Jewish guys. They are Pharisees and scribes. The men interpret Bibles. They do all of that. And Jesus is dealing with these guys and telling them in verse 44 of chapter 8 of St. John, there's a couple of scriptures before this explained, but I'm going to say that you are of your father the devil, and the desires of your father you want to do. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own resources, for he is a liar and a father of it. But because I tell the truth, you do not believe me. Verse 46, which of you convicts? Now, this is a new King James Version. I'm not used to some of these words, but which of you convicts? No, excuse me. Error there. Which of you convicts me of sin? Wow, I used the word convict. And if I tell the truth, why do you not believe me? He who is of God hears God's words. Therefore you do not hear, because you are not of God, but they have the law. So there's men that can be of the seed of David, but they're not in tune with God. So when God's man comes, they ostracize him because they're so into the letter of the word that their heart moves away from the spirit of the word and where God really wants to get their heart. So they begin to function and think like the devil will want them to think. So now here you have Jewish people, both raised in the law, one serving the father, the devil, one serving the Father, God Almighty. And so because one is serving one and one serving the other, you have another example of two nations. And this is a spiritual battle on a deep level. So I wanted to bring that part in to say that maybe Esau and maybe Jacob in the beginning, their heart was turned to, one didn't value certain things that God had set up in traditions, and he's going to go another way. And this is going to overshadow all his decisions in life. Just like here, these guys chose to listen to things other than the genuineness of God and the circumcision of the heart. They just interested in the circumcision of the foreskin. And they think that makes them a Jew because they do all the ritual. But their heart was far from God. So now you have two different nations going on right here. You got one that's of the nation of God, one of the nation of Satan, or the devil. Okay, so these two have no fellowship. So one seeks to kill the other, but the other one is seeking to bring the truth. So you got another battle going between two different kingdoms. Okay, so going back to the African struggle, we can say that it is of God that when God births you as an African, he births you as a European, he births you as a Chinese man, he births you as a Mexican or whatever the case may be. This is who you are. Now, if people don't accept it and don't like it, there's a problem with them. It's not with you. But when that problem becomes to where we can't function and we're oppressed, it becomes our problem. And when it becomes our problem, we have to go to the Lord and we have to go to the laws of the land to seek to rectify that situation and get it correct so that we can live. Now you have two different nations fighting each other. You have an oppressor nation and an oppressed nation. They're going to always be contenders. Two nations. If one in your household accepts the oppressor nation and one in the household doesn't accept it, those are going to be two nations at that level. You scale at the individual battle and you scale upward to the state, village, national battle. Okay, now we're in a national movement. You see people wanting to go back to the continent. You see people saying, I'm American, I'm staying here. But every time they're getting kicked in their behind as so-called Americans, they're not getting kicked in their behind because they're American. They're getting kicked in the behind because they're Africans, even though they don't want to accept it. Or maybe they accept it, but they just want to say that they're American. But some of them seek to disclaim their Africanness. And that's sad. It's sad. Because you got a lot of people out here suffering, bleeding, dying, getting killed, and you want to still call yourself something different when a person looks just like you. You can't even connect. You have a disconnect. Because that Negro shouldn't have been over there doing this. Maybe not. But that's still your brother. And that could be your son. That could be your daddy. It could be your cousin. That could be your daughter that gets popped like that. So we got two nations here that we're battling with, and it's a reality. Some people are going to serve the enemy oppressor in the way that his agenda is against his own people, and that is another form of serving the devil, because you do ill will to your brother. Whereas the people who are trying to alleviate the pain, like Moses, trying to identify with it, trying to bring you out of it, those people are like liberators. Okay? So, two nations are in your womb. So, in my brothers and the sisters in the struggle, if you have an uncle or niece, nephew, or aunt or brother and sister that continually persecutes you for your orientation toward your Africanness or your orientation toward God, it's two nations, one serving the powers of darkness, one serving God, one serving the oppressor, one serving his oppressed people. Two nations. And they're going to always be at battle. Sometimes you can win people over, sometimes you can't. So I wanted to bring that message and then bring this to you, and then maybe something can be added to you. You can get something out of it. I felt like this was a very definite lesson that needs to be brought out, because as we move forward, we're going to get into some other things that are going to be very serious. And I just think that this is what I'm here to do, even if it's humble beginnings. And, I got my little raggedy stuff back here, God forgive me, but this is humble beginnings. But this is not about money. This is not about prestige. It's just about humble beginnings and giving something that you can use. Now, let's make sure I didn't leave anything out here. He who is of God hears the words of a man of God or child of God. He who is not doesn't hear it. So it's a condition of the heart that allows people to hear and see God. Because even if you're of God, if people fight against you, they're really fighting against God. When you are trying to serve your brothers and you find yourself in prison, a political prisoner, you find yourself getting set up, you find brothers selling you out and trapping you by law enforcement, wicked law enforcement trapping you, that means you're doing something right. You're doing something right. Nobody bothers you. Everybody, you get a pat on the back everywhere you go, you're probably not doing anything for your people. Once you start doing something for your people, the enemy will come after you. It's just a given. Some people don't want that. They try to stay out of it. But you can run so long, but you can't hide forever. So eventually, you're going to have to contend with the truth. And when you pass from this life to the next life, and I always talk about this platform because this is mainly geared towards the believers, even though I welcome anybody. But if you move away from God and you move against your people, it's going to not be a good situation for you in the afterlife. But according to the scriptures, but I'll close here and conclude this and decide if I'm going to go to part 3 or go to another topic. God bless, peace, love. Man, know thyself, as Imhotep said.